Wait. Show, wait. I demand an explanation. I signed up for sweet, fluffy, slow-paced romance. Yes, lots of petals, lots of woo, lots of feelings, maybe some lewd and unprotected hand-holding, stuff I can handle early in the morning when this show drops on High Dive. But no, you totally snuck up on me with the ultimate finger-in-the-mouth move, and that was unfair. Unfair and unjust. How dare you? How dare you? Summon forth my inner degenerate and make her howl, "Please punish me, Your Highness!" How dare you displace my valiant Commander Albert Hawk from his top spot and my scanty list of anime blondes that I will simp for? But mostly, how dare you make it so that all that I had planned to say about episode 4 just went out the window? Thanks a lot. I resent that very, very much, because now I have to collect myself, probably watch the episode again, and make an effort to get through this video with at least some semblance of decorum. Hi everyone, the Chattering Magpie here. Today I'm going to share my thoughts and impressions on episode 4 and 5 of Bibliophile Princess. Now that Elianna and Christopher are finally on the same page regarding their feelings for each other, our lovebirds can finally get the chance to date for real. And Christopher, who is a rather cunning individual, knows very well that the way to his girl's heart is not through her stomach or through fine jewelry, but through books. So he suggests that they go to a book market. To do so, they must hide the fact that he is royalty and that she is a noble, so they don disguises. But who in their right minds would confuse these two for anything but nobles? Yet, away they go. Something that is notable about the book market is that it is held by a nomadic group of scholars called the Star of Sissel, who only come around once every 3 years and who are known to sell many rare books from all over the world. Ellie had in the past mentioned how much she desired to go, yet never before had the chance until now. I'm not entirely sure why the anime skips it, but in the light novel they make a particular point of stating that Elianna's father had expressly forbidden her in the past from ever going to the book market and from meeting the Star of Sissel. One of her maids was even brave enough to mention it the moment that Christopher suggested it, but she was probably shut down. In fact, it's not only she who can't go, but her father has forbidden even her brother from going, which is weird because shouldn't the Bernsteins be all up for the book market? It's a mystery. One other thing that was not clearly explained in the anime is that the Star of Sissel travel with the Roma people, but they aren't the same people. Still, they also have the same social stigma that the Roma do, and it is generally agreed that people that are part of polite society, which would include noble daughters like Ellie, shouldn't associate with them. Which is why it's such a great opportunity for a date, because the reality is, Elianna has long been dying to attend the book market, and Christopher is determined to make her wish a reality. He's also going to use the occasion to make Elianna drop the honorifics when it's just the two of them, threatening her with threatening her with punishments every time she forgets to call him Christopher. They get some shopping done and they get to be sickeningly sweet and romantic with each other as they spend time together. At this point, Christopher is much like most other shoujo male characters. He's less of an Albert Hawk and more of Prince Giordo, as he no longer holds back from teasing and tormenting our girl to the point that she's blushing whenever he gets too close. What I really liked were Elianna's reactions. She gets flustered and nervous, and she's just so cute. And no wonder Prince Christopher can't help but tease her, because she's just adorable. But before we can be treated to much more of this adorableness, the date is interrupted by a commotion in the market. 2 kids got caught stealing a book, and upon being questioned, they claimed that a noble by the name of Bernstein was the one that had ordered them to do this. He had ordered that they steal books in exchange for him helping one of the boys' mothers getting medical attention that she needs. Remember, the Roma who travel with the Star of Sissel are seen as outcasts, so not even doctors will see them. Before Elianna can step in and out herself as a Bernstein to clear this up, and no doubt refute the claims that a Bernstein would resort to stealing to the book, Christopher steps forward and intervenes. But before he can say much, one of the children leaps at him, hugs him, and calls him daddy, to the shock of everyone present, including that of the supposed father. They move from the scene of the commotion to some tables where the children explain what their deal is. The kid that called Chris his dad says that his father was a knight with blue eyes like him, and that his mother had said that he would return for them one day, which is really far-fetched, because even if Chris indeed knows some of the Star of Sissel people, that shouldn't mean that it's because he had an amorous affair with one of the women there. Ellie looks very troubled, however, and I dare claim that it's not that she actually believes that Chris had a secret child. It must be something else, but we'll delve into that later. Meanwhile, Chris actually thinks that she's probably troubled over the various claims that the children are making, and that he actually had a lover among the people of the Star of Sissel. That is why he's determined to get to the bottom of these random claims, so he leaves Elianna and the kids while he goes to investigate. Meanwhile, Paolo, the oldest of the two children, asks Elianna who she is and if she really is one of the Bernstein nobles. He says that the man who said was a Bernstein was also a noble, and a mole at that. He says that he knows that nobles like him are only using them, which is why he hates nobles. The boy goes off on her to the point that even his little friend Rene starts almost crying, so Paolo apologizes to Elianna. Elianna tells him that no one in her family would ever steal a book. In fact, if there ever was a book that they wanted and couldn't get their hands on it, even if they pled for it or were made to drink poison, they would read it anyway. And everybody started laughing, which was kind of weird. I'm like, what's going on? So I looked up into the light novel for further explanations, because this is weird rather than funny. So here's what the light novel actually said. My house would never do something as uncouth as stealing a book. Even if that book was something we desperately wanted to read, desperately wanted to get our hands on, we would find some other way to read it, even if we had to beg or drug the person to do it. One reading was enough. Once we'd read the book, we could make a clean copy of it by memory. Which actually makes more sense and is funny because it's just so extreme. Who would actually drug a person to get to a book? Now, Paolo has a marvelous idea, but first asks if Chris is her lover. But she doesn't answer with confidence, nor does she boldly assert her claim on him as she really should. She's feeling kind of sad about the missing memories, so she doesn't answer. Well, in any case, Paolo asks if they can borrow Christopher for a day so that he can act as Rene's dad. But Christopher interrupts and thankfully puts a stop to this kind of notion, saying that they're all going to walk to the head of the Star of Sissel to sort all this out. They all walk there. Unfortunately, Christopher is burdened with the task of carrying the clingy brat that still insists on calling him dad, and Chris is understandably upset that his date has been ruined. Still, he's nice enough to engage the child in conversation and even shares his own story from when he was a little boy. As a child, he was very close to his mom, and she was kind to him and would tell him stories. We see such a scene before the opening credits, where she basically is indoctrinating him into becoming the hopeless romantic that he is. Good job, Mom. However, she was sickly and she had to leave the palace for her health, and Chris, being the loving son that he was, worried a lot over his mom in her absence and wrote letters regularly. Eventually, his mom recovered and returned to the palace, but she had become stricter and there was no trace of the fun mom that she had once been, to the point that he began to think someone had cast an evil spell on his mom. He began researching on how to break the spells, but he was frustrated by his lack of success, which actually makes me wonder if that was why he was throwing the books in the library and why he'd go there so often when he had been a kid. So that was when he met the fairy of the library, Elianna, who taught him an important truth. Important things can't be seen with the eye. And that helped him see the truth past what was most apparent. His mom had kept and treasured each one of the letters he had sent. The light novel has additional details. Christopher admits to himself that there was a lot that he had not noticed then because he'd been so hot-headed. His mother had been very ill, and he was the only direct heir to the royal family. That must have put a lot of pressure on her. She had no choice but to be strict with him to ensure that he was up to the task of being the crown prince and becoming someone who held the country on their shoulders, to make sure that he was so superior that no one could question whether he was fit for the position or not. In any case, Chris tells Rene that no matter what happens, he should never lose sight of what's important. And Rene, having identified himself in the story as another small blue-eyed boy with a sick mother, takes the story to heart and thanks Chris, not as an otosan, that is, a dad, but as an oni-chan. And thank heavens he's over that delusion, because the secret son hijinks are only cute for so long. Now, at this point, Elianna comes back with sweets for Rene, and I can't get over how cute our book-loving angel is. She was thoughtful enough to bring something that a child would like, despite the fact that in the light novel it says that she really dislikes sweet things. Chris insists that she feed him one of the sweets, and she, being a good and obedient girl, does so, even though it's embarrassing. And he teases her by taking not only the sweet she offered, but also her finger. And yeah, that got a similar reaction out of me. Yes, watcher, I will admit, I squealed so loud that I shocked the neighbors and their dogs, because this part. People, this part. Elianna's reaction, justifiable. In fact, admirable. I would have sprinted out of there so quickly, just to cool my head off. Okay, episode is almost done, and I feel like I'm forgetting something or someone. I figure I'll remember later, so let's keep going. So they finally reach the Roma camp, and they want to talk to the head of the Star of Sissel. Christopher goes to meet a famous member of these people, Dr. Letzi, who is a scholar. He wrote many famous books. The man at first doesn't recognize Christopher, but once he does, he teases him about having made children with the Roma people since he came accompanied by the kids. Once again, Elianna gets depressed, and Christopher wonders why she's acting colder. And that is the end of episode 4. Episode 5 actually doesn't start there. It opens with another flashback. Chris is being pressured into accepting an engagement with a young woman from another country, but he's still adamant that the only one for him is Ellie. Yet people around him, even his own Uncle Theo, is urging him to consider putting aside his childish crush and seriously consider getting engaged to this lady. He is mulling over this problem when he stumbles upon the book market, and he recalls what Elianna had once said about wanting to attend it one day. So he goes there to investigate. He ends up meeting with Dr. Letzi, who, despite being a famous scholar, is something of a drunkard. Yet in spite of this fact, Chris brings up his issue and asks for advice. And while the old man mocks him a bit for not being able to hold on to a girl, he tells him that their paths are sure to cross again, and that he should be ready for that time so that she would not be taken from him again. Hearing that, young Chris is filled with determination and purpose. Back to the present, Dr. Letzi meets Elianna and pokes gentle fun at Chris about finally meeting the girl he had been so worked up over. Which is why when she asks Chris how he got to know the Star of Sissel, he dodges the question with an awkward smile, but that only makes her feel worse. Chris sends the kids back home, assuring them that he will talk to their leader, and offers Elianna his hand so that they can go see him. But she decides to accompany the kids to where Rene's mother is instead, and leaves him looking sad, and I just want to shake her because you don't do that. Don't leave the guy hanging. Aw, poor Chris. The problem with Elianna was not that she wants to know everything about Christopher, rather she was hit with the realization that there's so much that she did not know about him, and it was overwhelming for her. But at the root of all that anxiety was the fact that she could not recall how they had met all those years ago, which resulted in a lack of confidence in herself. Now suddenly some Roma kids emerged from the bushes. They were the other kids like Paolo and Rene, who also stole some books for the noble masquerading as a Bernstein. They say that they just got back from talking to that man. When the children saw that Paolo and Rene had been caught, they ran back to the man saying that they would no longer do what he wanted them to do. The problem, however, is that the man took Rene's mom and locked her away, almost as if she were being held hostage. That's really bad, but what's even worse is that the man said that he would burn all the books the kids had stolen to erase the evidence, which prompts Ellie to go into bloody carnival mode. And, of course she would, because no self-respecting bookworm would ever let something like that come to pass. So she runs to go save the books without thinking twice. Turns out that the noble mole is actually a Baron Maulsley. He had this incredibly stupid plan to blackmail the prince so that the country would go into business with a weapons manufacturer. It's a scheme that is so stupid that it's not even worth going into. Honestly, I'm going to skip this part. Suffice it to say that Elianna called his book-burning axe diabolical, said that he was lower than an animal, lower than even a ground beetle, and demands that he turn over Rene's mom. He is not the least bit sorry, and he demands that she do his bidding. But she has backbone, our girl does, so she says she wouldn't, because in her opinion, the kingdom would be far better off spending money in healthcare and the welfare of the people rather than in guns. Enraged, this man has his guards draw their swords on her and threatens her and the children. Thankfully, Christopher comes into the picture and tells him that he is delusional and that the company that he mentioned had actually just gone bankrupt, since the man designing those state-of-the-art weapons had designed faulty product and he'd run off with all the money. Then he had his guards arrest him and they went to rescue Rene's mom. The poor woman is seriously ill and she looks so wan and wasted, but her son cheerfully goes to her and tells her all that he's seen that day, especially the story that Christopher told him about not losing sight of important things. And he finally admits that he's known all this time that his father is gone and he won't come back, and he can finally accept it. In the anime, it says that he knows that his father is dead, and the light novel is made more ambiguous. Like the probability that he impregnated the woman and then left her is also likely. Whatever the case, the child knows that he has to accept the truth and the reality, and he is now committed to becoming a proper member of the Star of Sissel, and he wants to be a scholar and a seeker of truth. After that, Chris tells him of a new hospital that is open to all, even the Roma people and the Star of Sissel people, and that while the country is running it, Elianna is to be in charge of the project. Well, that's news for her. When she asks why, he answers that it was because she is the one who came up with the idea. Again, we get a flashback from when they were kids. Christopher asked her why she loves books, and she had answered that she feels connected to her deceased mother when she read the books that her mother had once read. Plus, in them, she can search for answers, particularly one that is very personal to her. She wants to know if there could have been a cure to save her mother. She said that she wished that just as people could access books in a library, that in the same way people could access a similar kind of library of doctors who would treat their illnesses so that no matter what station they were from, they could also receive treatment and no one would have to grieve like she did when she lost her mom. Christopher's mind that day had been blown. He had never even considered something like that, and he loved her for her ideas and for her deep empathy for people. And so that is how the charity hospital idea was born, because of her. Additionally, and this was not covered in the anime, the medical center was to be more than just a hospital. It was also meant to be a place where medical knowledge could be pooled and research could take place. Christopher had talked to the leaders of the Star of Sissel, and they had agreed to send their scholars to collaborate in this new facility. Baron Maulsley, however, had been against the idea of a hospital for everyone, and Christopher tells her it seems that is why Baron Maulsley was masquerading as a Bernstein. No one in Sosland would dare believe that a Bernstein would steal books, but he probably hoped that it would work with the Roma people and deepen their mistrust toward nobility, thereby damaging the reputation of the medical facility. Well, Paolo has been listening to all this, and he says, "Hey, lady, okay, so you say you're not sure whether you guys are lovers or not, but it's evident to all of us that you guys are into each other." When Chris hears this, he asks her what that's all about, and she confesses about her trying so hard to remember their past together, but she's having little success, and that just frustrates her. Christopher, our precious boy, actually rejoices. He's happier about the fact that she really wants to remember and doesn't feel bad that she doesn't quite remember it all. The children say, "Hey, she doesn't remember it, so why doesn't the prince kiss the princess and break the spell? Which of course causes Elianna to panic and flail because she can't kiss him in front of people. So instead, Rene tells him, well, why don't you use the magic words from the story that you told me earlier? And that actually triggers Elianna's memory. Yes, the words were magic because she finally remembers Christopher from a long time ago. She recalls how she had told him that important things were invisible. And he had told her that the next time that they met, he would teach her some magic words that only she would ever know. These magic words were the ones that his mother had taught him back when she had still been his kind and loving mom. Overjoyed that she finally remembers him, they smile at each other and hold hands. After that, they leave, and as they bid the Roma friends farewell, Dr. Letzi tells him to remember that the Star of Sissel is always watching. Which, I'm like, what kind of farewell is that? It kind of sounds creepy, like Santa Claus watching kids when they're sleeping and when they're awake. But okay, it doesn't make sense in this context, but once you read the light novel, we learn that it comes from the past history of the people of the Star of Sissel. The people of the Star of Sissel became nomads after their kind was almost wiped out. They had defied those in power and refused to take part in research on ways to kill people. Since then, they always went against authority in their constant mission to seek the truth, so he charges Christopher with being a responsible leader who uses knowledge wisely and for good. Because he is to marry Elianna, who comes from a family of great intellectual power, he also needs to make sure that the knowledge is not used for bad and violent things. That is why Dr. Letzi tells him as they leave that his people, the Stars of Sissel, would be watching him. They finally go home and they have an important talk while in the carriage. Ellie confesses how she has felt unfit to stand by his side. She really felt bad at the knowledge that their time together in the past had been so meaningful and had made a great impact on Chris, but at the same time, she had totally forgotten it. Chris replies that he was also a little anxious. He had been afraid that she would have changed after 4 years apart, just as his mom had changed when she was off recovering from her illness. But in the end, he was relieved because, yes, Elianna had changed. She had matured after all those years apart, but he had only fallen more in love with her, and the core of who she was had remained unchanged. Elianna admits that one fundamental change in her has happened, in that she has come to find him more precious and he is more important to her than books. Then she asks him to teach her the magic words that he had promised to teach her back when they had been kids, and he finally tells her, "You are my treasure." They hold hands, and in the close proximity afforded by a carriage filled with books, and in the enveloping darkness of the evening, they share a tender kiss. Oh my gosh, this is just too cute. Everybody, I was resurrected and I died again with this episode. Man, I really love this show. I love it to bits, and these two are just so precious, so wholesome, so adorable. I can't stand it. Again, it works out that I decided to cover these two episodes together. Like in episode 2 and 3, the first one sets the stage for the emotional conflict and introduces a secondary plot to go with it. In this case, being the mystery of the noble impersonating the Bernsteins at the book fair. But the main plot A, is Elianna getting over her insecurities with her relationship and both growing closer as a couple. It is obvious to all that Chris deeply cares for Elianna, and she's also quite in love with him. But affection is not all. They have to work at it. They truly need to learn to open up and communicate the things that trouble them. And this arc does just that. Plot B resolved easily enough, but I as a viewer am far more invested in part A, the emotional plot, making sure that my precious children's relationship works out. There is nothing I want more than for these two to be happy forever and just to be able to face their challenges together and overcome all the problems together. Speaking of plot A and plot B, the light novel includes an additional mystery that the anime doesn't go into, and I totally get it because, time. But I thought it was kind of cute. And this plot, I guess I could call it plot C, is the mystery of why the Bernsteins are forbidden from going to the book market and why the Roma had such a visceral reaction to the name of Bernstein when it came up. Dr. Letzi tells them that around 20 years ago, a noble scholar had attended their market and had spent all night talking with the Star of Sissel scholars. The man, who turns out was Elianna's father, had been incredibly intelligent. So much so that he had impressed the Star of Sissel scholars. However, the next morning, his heavily pregnant wife showed up and gave him such a sound scolding in front of everyone. She had been worried sick over him since he had been missing and he hadn't sent out word to her. Dr. Letzi said that the sight of Elianna's father being humbled by his wife became a legend among the Star of Sissel, and they never saw him since. Probably because his wife had forbidden it, and in turn, Elianna's father had forbidden his kids from going so they would never ever learn of this story. As to Elianna's brother, he actually snuck in once when he was a kid, and he caused some mischief the one time he went to the book market. His money had run out quickly, and so he played all the Roma for their money to buy more books. At first, he played little boys his age, but then the grown-ups played him and he beat them every single time, took a bunch of money from them. He even challenged the boss running the gambling house, and yeah, he won. And so ever since then, the Roma had been on the lookout for another Bernstein, saying to be especially careful of them. Now, there's something else I still can't remember. What was it that I'm forgetting? Oh, I finally remember. Yes, a running gag in the show so far is that Elianna keeps forgetting who Alan is, and I was hoping that the anime would just continue making this a thing. It was really funny that Elianna is the only one that is immune to his good looks and popularity, and I wanted him to continue to be shocked that his charms don't work on her, and that he needs to reintroduce himself over and over and over again. However, by episode 5, Elianna knew who he was and even remembered his name, which good for you, Alan, but I would have liked it if they had kept that thing going. I also want to briefly talk about the Star Traveler. They kept talking about this story here and in the light novel on how this book for children is something Ellie cherishes so much because it reminds her of her mother. In fact, one of Elianna's most cherished memories is her mother reading the book to her. Just like how they keep referencing the travels of Parco Molo in lieu of the travels of Marco Polo, I hazard a guess and say that the Star Traveler is actually inspired by a real book. In this case, it's The Little Prince, which, by the way, contains the following quote: "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." Of course, they changed the talking animal to a crow rather than a fox, but in my humble opinion, the similarity is undeniable. And I think it's cute because my own auntie shared her love of The Little Prince with me when I was a little girl. And to this day, I really enjoy the story, and its message still resonates with me. Finally, yes, I'm almost done, but let me talk one more thing. Yes, back to the finger biting part. Yes. I just love the romance in this story. I kind of leaned into the thirsty simp angle at the beginning, but there is far more that I loved about it than just me having another 2D boyfriend to add to my collection of hotties to simp over. This moment and the final kiss in episode 5 was absolutely beautiful and just perfect for the simple reason that it was romance, tailor-made for the female gaze. In this present evil age, it's quite rare to find romance anime that doesn't assume its viewers are a male audience. So finding, at last, something that's unabashedly gentle and sweet and playful and just a little bit naughty, something made for the female gaze, was incredibly thrilling. That's why I got as excited as I did. Why can't we have more of this? I think the last shoujo I watched was Fruits Basket, and that ended, in 2021? Yeah, it's been a while. It's sad. We need more shoujo. The preamble to intimacy, sweet words, caresses, all of that stuff. They are supremely important in real life, so why should it not be the same here? These small moments are far more compelling and get me more excited than if they had shown Prince Christopher's abs or whatnot. It's about putting an emphasis, it's about enshrining moments of softness, tenderness, and even vulnerability, moments full of emotion. I am very happy that they made it a point of not actually showing the punishments that Christopher gave Elianna in the carriage, or the final kiss. It was censored and we didn't actually get to see the lips meet. But what we got was supremely beautiful because moments like these are private and intimate. So there's no real need to see all the details because what matters is that it happened and that they opened their heart to each other. I really could go on and on about why shoujo romance like the ones in Bibliophile Princess is just so wonderful and why these 2 episodes have checked all my boxes. But I'll leave it to a pro. Colleen from Colleen's Manga Rex went into far more details, so if you're interested, please do yourself a favor and click the link in the description to learn more about it. This video just slaps and everyone should watch it. And okay, I'm done. That's all. I just finally want to say thank you so much to my supporters and to those that have even purchased merch. I send you hugs and kisses full of sparkles and flower petals. Love you all. Until next time. Bye bye.